Hello, everyone. We are here to talk about our new business rules in Clarity 15.9.2. So what's new? Starting 15.9.2, customers have the ability to define business rules to control how data is displayed within the object instance in the modern UX. This is an easy way for our administrators to control the functionality with multiple rules within modern UX itself. Why is this important? Customers using stage gate or ideation process have used views to control which data gets displayed to the users in the classic UI based on the object instant information. This type of functionality is not available in the modern UX and required a lot of configuration customization in the backend. Starting in modern UX in 15.9.2, you can leverage the business rules to do a similar type of functionality to be able to display relevant information to the users based on the information within that object instance itself. So let's look at the business rules itself. Business rules are defined within the blueprint of an object. Rules can control how the object instance data can be viewed by the user. Rules are defined in the blueprint, so you can have different rules based on different blueprints. Rules will automatically perform the action once the required conditions are met. Rules can be defined for either project, ideas, custom objects, or custom investment types. Multiple rules can be defined within the same blueprint, and different blueprints can have different rules. First, let's look at the configuration of the business rules. Business rules are configured within a blueprint. Rules can only be created or edited when the blueprint is in edit mode. Multiple blueprints can be created based on different conditions. Individual rules can be enabled or disabled within the same blueprint. So once you've defined the multiple conditions, you do have the option to say only certain rules are enabled or disabled. Rules can only be enabled once the conditions, the actions, and the conditions have been defined correctly. And you have the common grid functionality for managing the rules. So you can easily see all the information and use the checkbox to enable or disable the rules. To configure an individual rule, you would, within the blueprint, create the new rule button, and once doing so, the modal will pop up. In here, the building of the new rule is done as follows. You'll have to define the name for your rule. You can give it a description, and then you have to define a condition. Conditions are the rules as to what needs to happen before an action can be taken. These rules can be based on any of the object attribute types. And once those conditions are defined, the respective actions will then be executed, which today there are only two actions, either to hide a section or hide a module. Once the required values, which is the rule name, conditions, and actions have been populated correctly, the rule is automatically enabled. If a rule is incomplete, then it will not be enabled, and you cannot enable it till you populate all the required values. The conditions can be defined as whether all conditions have to be met or any of those conditions listed in here are met. Let's look at the condition a little bit more in detail. Going from left to right, when defining the conditions for the rule, you can define the condition based on either access groups. So you can say that if a certain user that is reviewing the object instance belong to an access group, then the actions should be fired. Or any of the attributes within that object type except for rich text fields, money, or URL. Once you've selected those attributes, then you can define what values for those selected attributes should be reviewed, whether it is the is equal to, not equal to, empty or not empty for that specific value. And for lookups, you can select multiple values. After you've defined multiple attribute conditions, you can say whether all those conditions need to be met or any one of them. After building the conditions, you can then define actions, and there are two possible actions that can be done at this point. The two actions are either to hide a module or hide a section. Hiding the module will hide those modules that are defined within that blueprint, and hiding a section will hide the sections within that blueprint. Selecting hide modules will then give you the option to pick any of those modules that have been defined within that blueprint. You can select multiple by picking one at a time. If you select hide sections, then you will get the option to select the sections that have been defined within the properties of that object instance or in that blueprint. You can select multiple sections by selecting one at a time. You can select the actions to be both hide modules and hide sections, and it'll appear as follows, where all the modules will be listed together and the sections listed together. Once the business rules have been defined and enabled, the end user experience would be pretty much as follows, where in this example, I'm saying the work status is complete, then hide the risk issues and changes and hide the settings. So when the end user goes into a project where the work status is active, I can see risk issues changes as well as the settings section. But if I go to another project where the work status is complete, those risk issue changes are automatically disappeared, as well as the settings has automatically disappeared from this. So the rules get executed automatically just by navigating into that object instance. With that, let's go look at the business rules in action. So here I have logged into my Clarity 15.9.2 instance. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my administration, and I'm going to look at my project blueprint. So within the blueprints, I'm going to look at defining a new business rules for my project blueprints. I have a project default blueprint. I'm going to go inside of there. And right here, you can see there is a new tab for rules. When I click on that, at the moment, I have only one rule defined in here. When I open that, I can see that rule definition, which is if I do not belong to a financial manager, then the finance and OKR dashboard should be automatically hidden. So that rule already exists. But I want to define a new rule where if the work status is put on hold, then I want to hide certain sections and modules. To do that, I will have to put my blueprint into an edit mode. Then I can click on the new rule button. I can give my rule a name that'll be useful. I can give more description. And next, I can define my conditions. In this case, my condition is going to be very simple, which is I want to make sure that if the work status is equal to on hold, then I want to take some actions. Notice at this point, I've only filled in the name and the condition, because the rule is not complete, we have the message, an informational message displayed to the user saying that at least one condition and one action have to be defined in order for the rule to be enabled. In this case, I'm missing an action. So let's define an action. I first want to hide modules. By selecting that, I get the add module section. These are all the modules that are available to me in my blueprint. So I can pick all of these. I can say I want to hide conversations. I don't want any conversations for a project that's on hold. I don't want anybody to change the financials, as well as there should not be any risk issues or changes. So I can pick multiple of these. So all of these modules should be hidden the minute I go to a project that is on hold. I also want to hide some sections. So I'm going to select the hide sections, and the add section appears. In this case, I don't want anybody to change any alignment while the project is on hold, and I don't want anybody to, again, make any financial changes. So quite a few of these will be hidden if I go into a project that is on hold. I have populated at least one condition and one action. I can go ahead and now click on create. Notice that my rule is automatically enabled because I populated all the required conditions. That's just for example, if I build an incomplete rule and I just say, this case, the same thing, the simple example where I'm going to say if it is not an active project, do something, but I do not populate the action, I can click on create. It creates it. It gives me a warning that the rule was created, but it's disabled because not all the conditions have been met. And notice that it is unchecked. If I don't want it, I can just go ahead and delete that. Once I've satisfied defining my business rule, all I have to do is just publish this new rule out and see this new rule in action. So let's go into my project. Let's look at my project, but let's look at it based on my stage gate view. Here I can see all the different projects based on their different status. So if you remember, my condition was the new condition that I created is that if the project is on hold, then hide several modules and sections. In this first, let's go into a project that is active. So going in here, I can see financials, I can see the risk issue changes, as well as conversation, which would be right here. And I can see all the financial numbers for this active project. If I put the same project on hold and go back into the same project, notice all of a sudden the risk issue change just disappeared. So did the finance and the conversation. So those tabs have automatically disappeared, as well as the financial section has automatically disappeared. Next, I also had another condition in there, which was based on security rights. And that security right said that if I do not belong into financial management, I should not be able to see certain financial sections. So I'm going to log out and I'm going to log in as a user that does not belong to my financial management group. I'm going to go into my project. And in here, because I don't belong into the financial manager user group, even though the project is active, I don't see the financial tab or the financial setting page. This concludes my demo.